Alright, we are live now.
All right.
Alright, one moment. So we got switch red. Why does it still have a switch red? Okay, there we are. Alright, Logan, you want to start us off?
You can.
Alright, welcome everyone to the West Virginia Southern interview stream. I am joined by almost all the employees on the West Virginia Southern, and this stream's a little bit different. We are here to ask questions about the railroad, and so we're going to get started real fast. First slogan up for Logan is. I'm going to go into the Discord.
By the way, Shane is deaf.
Alright. Well, these questions are for you first because you created the West Virginia Southern. The first question is what is the training like and how do we get a job with the West Virginia Southern?
So, with that, I wouldn't really consider it a job. I would mainly consider it a role within the community.
Hello.
Oh, hey Shane.
I am so tired of the Discord and the microphone stuff.
But I wouldn't really consider it a job. I would mainly consider it a role. And the training is not very hard. We're very nice about it, and we're very lenient on stuff. And with that, I would consider the community that we've built really cares for one another, and we really hold each other to a very high standard within everyone. So I wouldn't really consider it a job. I would consider it more of a role.
Alright. Next question is, how long has the West Virginia Southern been operating for?
Well, we started last year in May, so about 8 months, and we've actually grown quite a bit since the 8 months. We've had a few rough patches here and there, but we've always bounced back.
The next question is, how many miles of track do we run?
Right now, currently, we do, I want to say, 40, about 40 miles of track, yeah.
Alright. The next question is, what is it like working on the West Virginia Southern?
Well, it's very busy. We're always constantly doing something. There's multiple job roles to be within the community. Like, you can ask Xavier. He's a dispatcher for us, and then we've got train masters and then yard masters, and then we have just our train engineers and our train crews. There's dozens and dozens of roles within the community, and you're always busy doing something.
Alright. Next question is, what's like our motive power like? Like, how diverse are we?
We're very diverse in our power. We've got multiple of different kinds and makes and models, and we're still expanding every single day with power.
One question is, what's our future plans for the West Virginia Southern?
Well, I think that's kind of the exciting part is we always have plans for the future, and right now I really don't want to say a whole lot, but we are working towards Andrews with another 12 miles of track. And with that being said, there's going to be more trains that need to be ran out there, and then just a lot more work, and we're constantly expanding. We're going to add another, I want to say, 8 industries to the list, and 4 or 5 more train crews to the yard work.
Alright. What are the roles and how does one get assigned a role?
So, how the roles work are, when you join, you'll go through the training with one of our instructors, and it's not very intense training. If you have very good experience in Railroader, all you have to do is basically a road test, and then you're given roles. And then you just basically work up from there to wherever your desired position is. Right now we've got openings for yard masters, train masters, and everywhere in between. So there's always work to be done and roles to fill.
So, the next question is, what is the most busiest part of our railroad?
Busiest part, I would say, is our fast freight train. That thing is a beast to handle. I mean, most of us don't have struggle handling it, but some of us do, and it can be a challenge sometimes. And then on top of just running our fast freight is our passenger trains. They're constantly running.
Alright, well, I guess I could flip that question around and say, what do you think is the most highest priority of all your trains that you own?
Highest priority probably just depends on what's running on the railroad at any given time. I think Xavier can answer that question more than I can.
So, Xavier, what do you think is the most highest priority of the West Virginia Southern?
As a dispatcher, I personally try to keep the fast freight from stopping. I want to keep the fast freight moving because it has the most weight and most immediate revenue. As the passenger trains are rather paramount operation, it's a good idea to keep the fast freight moving because it's all that weight, all those cars and length that I'd rather not put into the hole. Both fast freight and passenger are both very, very important, but it depends on the situation and time of day, really.
Alright, and this is going to be a painful question to ask, but what is the West Virginia Southern Railroad safety like?
I wish Mick was here.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably the best answer we can describe for that.
Alright. What is your favorite guys' part about working for the West Virginia Southern? And this is for everyone.
I'll have Shang start with that because I was obviously the first one, but he was number 2 in the situation and in the start of it. So I'm gonna let him ask or answer the question first.
Well, seeing how everything's grown from how me and him started, I didn't actually realize this was the same save game that we were using until last night when he told me. And
At like 1 in the morning.
Yeah, and it's completely floored me on how far we've actually came, and it's something to be proud of because of how much work has been put into it, and showing how much bigger we're actually planning on being. It's really proud. It's a thing that you can look forward to doing. So I mean, pretty much, it's something you can very much enjoy, and being around everybody's great. Everybody gets along with each other. There's no issues or anything like that. So I mean, overall it is one of the best experiences in a community that I've had playing a game with other people.
All right. Does anyone else want to add on to that?
Xavier?
Well, I would say kind of the same as Shane just said. My favorite part about it is all the people that play at the same time, and we actually have a good operation going. Like sometimes when I'm dispatching or running the fast freight, and there's actually thinking required when there are all that many trains working, and crews have to coordinate with each other.
And I'll throw my sense into it as well. I'm gonna have to agree with both Shane and Xavier on this and what they said. I mean, the other night we had 7 people in the server at the same time, compared to just me and Shane on a phone call on our phone to now having a Discord and a YouTube channel and a community that actually shows up day after day and still isn't bored of everyone, because we make it a very fun environment. Like, it's not super strict. Like, there's times where we are strict just due to the fact of it being so busy. But like right now, we're not really strict because there's not really many people on. Like the other night, we still weren't very strict, but we also made the environment very fun for everybody. And just coming from where we started 8 months ago and all the headache we're still we came through and dealt with, it's astonished me that we've come this far already, and we're still growing every day.
What is the most busiest train yard in your opinion?
I think everyone could have a little bit of a different opinion on that. But right now, Xavier, what would you say the most busiest yard is?
Take a look at the map here. I think Alarka is, because it sees 3 trains regularly, several at the same time, whereas Bryson, I mean, the passenger trains don't terminate there. You'll have the Pulpwood train and the Bryson local, sure. East Whittier, that's just the Whittier local most of the time, and Dillsboro, literally nothing terminates there, so I would say Alarka is the busiest.
Which, and like that's going to be changing here soon, because we're still expanding. Like, we're getting ready to get the additional 12 miles out to Andrews, and Alarka is probably not going to see many more trains than just the Alarka local anymore. So everything's constantly moving around with how busy yards are and just the overall where everything terminates and stuff like that. Everything's constantly changing.
All right. Next question is, how does one get assigned a job, or can we just join one randomly?
So, like I said earlier, it's not really a job, it's more of a role, and I think everyone can agree with me on this. It's never been a job, because it may feel like it, but it's not, because we hold everyone to the same standard we do everyone. Like, if you don't want to come to a night, you don't have to, and no one's going to say anything. We may check up on you to see if you're okay, but we're not going to hammer you of, oh, you gotta join. But we're not like that. Um, and I think that's what separates us from most of the railroads on Railroader, especially the railroad communities, due to the fact of it just being one of those communities where it's not really there.
What is the most
It's not really a
difficult part
job.
about the railroad?
Um, Most difficult job.
Like, not most difficult job, but like the most difficult part of the entire journey. Like, say you're driving the freight train, and what would you say is the most difficult part about the railroad? Like grade or crossing or going through a town, like that type of thing.
I can't really answer that question because it's constantly changing.
I would say, keeping the train. If you want to run the train as realistically as possible when you're going down a grade, the fast freights. It's not exactly. It's not hard. It's just kind of. Yeah, it's hard. Or it's slightly difficult to find the right spot, how many pounds to take out of the brake pipe, so on and so forth.
Okay. Um, what is the most busiest time of day for the West Virginia Southern?
In the morning, I think everyone will agree with me on that.
Yeah, I would say the morning too.
All right, can you elaborate why the morning?
I think Xavier can elaborate on that.
Well, the fast freight arrived to the interchange 4 hours prior. The outbound just went out, inbound just came in. The passenger trains are being worked on, filled up and spun around so they can start on their routes, while the yard crew in Silva's drilling out the inbound, getting in order for the fast freight to head west. And you got locals already starting getting releases out, like the Whittier local may or may not start getting the loaded cars out of the sawmill already to get ready for the fast freight to come in. Normally, if I'm running the Whittier local, that's how that would go, but when other people run it, sometimes it might be a little different. And that's why the mornings are the busiest.
So how many
On
trains?
top of that,
Okay, go ahead, Logan.
I said, like, on top of that, we're also running wood trains and then MOWs if they're out. I mean, we're constantly doing in the mornings. It's
Basically,
never,
everyone doing something.
yeah. It's always someone doing something, and on top of that, there's always a train on the main line. There's never a train not on the main.
What would you say is the most downtime and relaxed time for the West Virginia Southern? Like the time where we're less busy, like we're barely busy at all.
Xavier, you want to answer that one?
Yeah, I think when freight kind of kicks back a little bit, because by the time the fast freight gets to Alarka, the Alarka local does everything it needs to. By that time, the Bryson local and the Whittier local will have completed almost anything besides logs. Whittier local has to keep doing logs around the clock.
That
And
and
then it's just
Baldwin.
passenger running. Yeah, sure. And then just passenger running at that point. All of the locals have gotten all the revenue freight in already. And then it's just sit back until about midnight when or around midnight when the fast freight starts running east again.
Right. So, how many trains have you ran on the main line in total before? Like,
5, I think. There was
The,
at least 4. We had the fast freight, two passenger trains, and it may have been a local. Or I don't know if we had the Pulpwood train at that time yet.
the max I've seen recently has been 6.
all right, what else? Chat, don't forget to ask any questions you want as well. what would you consider the most dangerous part of the railroad is?
When I get a hold of the Whittier local.
uh, I,
Honestly,
There's-
right now, we don't have the dangerous spot yet. It's going to be coming whenever we do open up our new branch. But as of right now, everything's pretty easy, so to speak.
What's the longest train you guys have ever hauling?
90?
longest train?
Yeah.
Yeah.
like, lo-
It would have been 90 cars.
So what is dispatching like on the West Virginia Southern? How hard is it?
It's not difficult. From the point of view of a real-life dispatcher, I don't find it to be too difficult. However, yesterday, I did have to actually put on my actual dispatcher's thinking cap, and sometimes there's math involved. If you want to be a great dispatcher, you should be doing math about mileage and speed to see where the best meeting place is. If you don't want to risk it, if you should risk it, if it's not risky at all, you should assess how important or what you should prioritize, as I was saying earlier. If the fast freight's going up the hill, up towards Cowie, and you have a passenger train coming down, you should assess what's more important there, or what's gonna be the most difficult to start back up after you stop it.
TNRR asks, do we have any run-through freight, like foreign train units along with the trackage in our cities, to a distant city?
Not right now. I mean, the game developers that make the game and made all of this, there's a roadmap, and interchange to interchange operations is what it's called, and it's way down in the future, but it is on their list to do, and we are very looking forward to getting to do that.
Alright. So, what is the most favorite locomotive? Like, what is your prized locomotive that you guys own on the West Virginia Southern? For me personally, as I work on the West Virginia Southern, I would have to say the 1945 GP9, since it's honoring our veterans. Do you guys have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, all my locomotives are my favorite. I don't never not run one. I mean, I run every single locomotive on the server, and it's just the way we've came and how far we've come. All of them are my favorite because all of them get used every single day.
So, what are operations like? Like, is there a set schedule for everything?
Xavier?
Yeah. Interchange comes in at 4 in the morning. And as I said earlier, while the yard crew, or the fast freight crew rather, is drilling out their train, other people will be working on the passenger trains to get those spun around and get those going. And then the fast freight's supposed to leave the interchange by 6:30. As of right now, we're running it as it leaves ASAP as soon as the train's built, which usually takes 20, 30 minutes. And then...
Unless there's a secondary interchange.
Right, yeah.
So how
In
does
which
one
case
get
it's
a
still...
secondary interchange?
What was that, Mass?
So how does one get a secondary interchange? Do we schedule it, or does the game force it?
I mean, it just depends on how many cars we get a day.
If the amount of cars we're getting in for the inbound is more than what the inbound can or what the tracks can physically hold, and the game will give us a second inbound automatically. Or we can opt to take a second one, which comes in 2.5 hours after the first one, if we want to have more cars. But in which case, not many come in. I've only ever seen max of like 10 cars come in that way.
Yesterday was 13.
Oh, sorry, I was 3 off.
But back to the schedule, Xavier.
And then the fast freights just plows through the main line, gets to Alarco whenever. Usually doesn't take that long. And then it's supposed to leave eastbound at midnight later that night. And it takes whatever cars were released from Alarco last minute, goes up to Robinson, takes a coal, and then goes from there. Passenger keeps running meanwhile.
Alright. So for that question for the fast freight is, does the West Virginia Southern have multiple fast freight, or is it just one long big one?
Just one.
Well, yeah.
All that's needed as of right now is one. Logan, I'm not sure what your plan was with this, but there could be a second fast freight out of Andrews when we get that.
I mean, I was already planning on announcing some stuff at the end, but we might as well start announcing some stuff right now. And I mean, me and Xavier haven't really talked recently because he's just now getting back into it. But me and Shaden were talking last night, and we were doing some testing on just a sandbox save, and there's going to be one more fast rate that comes out of Andrews that will be it'll sort itself in Andrews, then it will leave behind the Andrews work, and then beeline with it'll be an express unit to Bryson.
So you mentioned Bryson a couple times. What is Bryson exactly? Is it a big train yard, or what is it exactly?
So with Bryson, it's a decently sized yard. There's a total of 8 tracks in Bryson, I do believe. I think let me just double look here, and I'll tell you an exact. Yeah, there's a total of 8 tracks in Bryson, and with Bryson, it's our maintenance hub. It's where we do all of our maintenance, and then on top of that, it's got its own industries. It's got 5 industries in total, 5 or 6, and then all the cars that come through it just for maintenance, and then trains for maintenance and overhaul. Then just passengers coming through, and fast freaks obviously coming through with freight and stuff like that.
You mentioned something earlier about wood trains. Do you care to elaborate on what you mean by that?
So the wood train is our 5801. It's our number 5 unit train, and it's not really. It's a unit train as per se for wood products specifically. It's not just one type of wood like logs or pulpwood. It's a double unit train which will haul both, and it takes logs from Bryson to Whittier. Then it takes pulpwood cars out of Whittier to Silva for the paperboard in Silva.
Alright, TNRR asks, do we haul liquid fuels? Like, I'm assuming he means like diesel fuel, oil, chemicals, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we haul our own diesel fuel. We have our own diesel cars. I mean, there's multiple diesel industries along the whole railroad. How many are there, Xavier? Do you have an exact number on that?
There's standard oil. That's just west of Bryson. There's also Hollifield oil. That's at Whittier.
M&G Chemical in Warka.
Yeah.
And then our diesel
And
fuel
then the one at, well, that in Dillsboro. There's
You're
one
right,
in Dillsboro too. Oh, and Silva, there's a chemical covering Silva as well.
So what is Silva exactly? You mentioned that it's an interchange, but is it like a yard or is it just an interchange?
So with Silva, it's at the end of the track. It's non-CTC, and it's where the big. It's not only our interchange. The interchange is, I'm going to say, a quarter mile up the road from Silva. We always just call it the Silva interchange because it's not. It's located in Silva, but it's our interchange point. But it's not. It's got industries in it as well.
Alright. What's the track speed limit on the West Virginia Southern?
The bulk of
it,
it,
speed?
35.
Yeah.
However, between about milepost 50 and about milepost 56 or 57 rather, it fluctuates between 40 and 45 in there, but otherwise it's 35. The Larka branch is 30. If otherwise noted, there's 25. There's a 25 limit between Larka Junction and just south of Cochrane, I guess.
About how many passengers do you move a day on the West Virginia Southern?
I want to say anywhere from 8,000 to 15,000 passengers a day, currently.
What is your most favorite part of working on the West Virginia Southern? And this is for everyone.
Did we have this question already?
Well, like, your favorite scenery, let me rephrase.
Oh, favorite, like, physical location.
Yeah, like, your favorite location, like, being Whittier or Silva. Like, what is your guys' most favorite location of the working on the West Virginia Southern?
Whittier. I like shifting that because it's at least 20 car inbound every day.
All right, Logan, we're coming up on you know what, so care to explain it since we're like right here a little bit?
Hey, yeah, I mean, we're right coming into Bryson right now, and we're on a passenger train, and we physically started in Silva at the station there, and just us talking, we've gotten this far into Bryson, and if you look out to the right there, you've got 5801, or no, that would be 3502, which is our Dillsboro local, and it's getting ready to head out back to Dillsboro for because it came in for maintenance, and then on the next track over is our wood train, and that's got to head out here in a little bit as well. Then we're coming into the station, and right now we're in the yard portion of the Bryson, and you can see like it's decently full right now. You've got your Bryson local you can kind of see it there in the back, and then when the passenger train gets done filling up on its passengers, because we're actively on a moving passenger train, you'll be able to see out the left side of the train, the station. Then back out to the right, you'll start seeing a few of the industries. You can see one of the industries right now, which is Bryson Team, and that's station stuff for obviously the passengers. And then you've got your Bryson Freight House, which would be your next one. And then you've got your Bryson Coal and Lumber. And then you'll see our diesel stand, coal stand, and water. And before that, right after the crossing, you'll obviously see our little town here in Bryson. And then when we get on the other side of our cooling towers, you'll see our roundhouse and stuff like that.
So I noticed that signal coming in was a yellow. So care to elaborate what that means?
So it will be an approach signal into Bryson. We all the game has set it to where we have an approach in Bryson constantly because of just the activity in Bryson. You if you look out the back, you can see there's switches everywhere in Bryson.
Yeah, we see that little diesel switcher sitting in the yard. Yeah. And that's one of the passenger engines that you own on the front of the train, correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the passenger engines currently on the front of the train. I mean, right now you can kind of see our roundhouse right now and all of our maintenance tracks, and it right now it's empty because there's nothing over there. But um, we're actually pulling up to our rig signal right now because um, it is getting close to midnight, and we actually have our fast rate running currently a little early. So we do have time to get out, and I'll walk you over to our uh, secondary cut for our passenger trains. So all of our passenger trains look the same. I mean, it's uniformity for us. I mean, that's the big thing for us. So we always have a P43 on the front of the engine. I mean, and that's kind of simple because I built this train to go over the hardest part of the railroad that we're getting here soon. And then if you look at the back of it, we've got a total of 7 passenger cars in total. And that's every single passenger train that looks like that.
Can we go inside the engine?
Um,
What's that horn
yeah,
noise
if you
I
want
hear in
to,
the distance?
that would be the number 3.
And the number 3 would be the fast rate, correct?
Yep.
I'm going to have the camera pan so that way it catches the fast rate coming in.
All right.
All right. So since the fast freight is arriving, can you care to explain like how long has it been around and what its motive power is?
So the fast rate's been around since basically the start of it. Wouldn't you say, Shane?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, when we first started, we had to have some way of an organized way to get stuff moved around from our first interchange in Whittier, and it was just the easiest way to plan was just to make a fast freight and just pick everything off of it.
So GP9s for the power, huh?
Yeah. They're not as strong as the Santa Fe's, but diesel's cheaper than coal to run, and we just had the 4 GP9s running it because it's just cheaper and to run like that, and it's constantly running, pulling heavy weights.
How heavy would you say the fast freight train is right now?
Currently, the fast freight is exactly 2,973 tons.
Alright, well, we're getting back on the passenger train.
Oh, by the way, Xavier, if you're driving that, have the Bryson stuff go up in front, and but those flat cars need to go to Dillsboro, and then
Okay.
so does the Dillsboro local. So just plan accordingly.
So I think you already asked this question, but I'm still going to re-ask it anyway. What exactly is the 4303 just doing sitting there and not running on the main line with the other passenger trains?
I didn't really answer it the first time. I mean, it's just an extra train. I mean, both of the passenger trains we do have wear and tear running, and it affects our reputation if they get too damaged. And then the reason why it's sitting in Bryson, because that's obviously our repair hub. And if one train goes down, we have a backup.
All right. Does the West Virginia Southern own any special heritage units?
Yeah, our 1945 is our veterans unit. No, what unit is that, Xavier?
That's 1945.
Yeah. Then it's 1843 is the other diesel, right? It's the heritage.
I believe so. That is the Bryson local. Or it used to be.
Well, yeah, 1945 used to be the Bryson local.
Oh, you're talking about the 1863, I believe.
Yeah, 1862. Yeah. Yeah, that's the other heritage unit, because West Virginia, we obviously love our state. I mean, we love West Virginia, and we just love our state, and we also love our veterans. I mean, the veterans unit, we did honor our veterans. Then 1863 is the year West Virginia seceded from Virginia in the Civil War when that was going on.
All right. Well, PNRR basically you just basically answered TNRR's question. The next question is, how often do you have trains get delayed on the West Virginia Southern?
I'll have Xavier answer that question.
How often?
Yeah, trains.
Wouldn't
really
say.
Trains getting put really behind schedule.
It's rare. It's rare. So, well, sometimes when the second interchange comes in, the fast freight's delayed by
2
15
hours.
minutes. But not like it takes much time to traverse the entirety of the main line anyway. The fast freight can make up that time very easily. Passenger does not get delayed ever, I don't think.
Not often.
All right. How often do you guys have meets with the other trains, like we just witnessed earlier with the train that we're riding in now and the diesel locomotive and the fast freight?
All the time. Because the freight's almost always running, passenger is always running, so the passenger trains always have to meet somewhere. There's always a meet planned.
I've noticed that we're slowing down quite a bit. Could you care to explain why we're slowing down?
We're slowing down because we've got speed restrictions through here. I mean, we obviously have some speed restrictions that our trains can't do full track speed through. So we've got a few speed restrictions throughout the map to where we have to go a certain speed so the train doesn't derail.
Right. And so, how many stations do you currently bring in and drop passengers off?
Shane, you want to answer that question? Because I don't have an exact number on that.
As of right now, you'd actually have to go through and count which ones, which I honestly don't know either. I mean, yeah.
10.
Yeah. 10?
10.
That we currently service.
That we currently service, yes.
Alright, Railroader Gaming asks, what type of observation car are we in?
We're just we're in the standard observation card that the game gives us. We're not a modded railroad. We were a modded railroad and we died very easily. So the board of directors have made the decision where we're not going to mod out, and it until the Steam Workshop comes up, which is on the roadmap for it for the game, and we're just not going to mod because it's too much of a hassle to mod out. And so everything's in the base game. You can get it as soon as you download the game.
Excuse me, Mr. President. You did say you wanted the log cars out to Dillsboro, right?
Yeah, they gotta be left in Dillsboro.
Alright. Trying to think what else. Chat, like I said, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to ask. What's the slowest a train has ever gone before?
List?
Yeah, like your slow speed.
15. But we go all speeds. I mean, as long as we're not speeding on the main line, we're through all the speeds.
Alright.
You get DC'd, Xavier.
I'm back. No, I did not. I did, but like.
You mentioned something earlier about a maintenance of way train. Could you care to elaborate on what that is exactly?
I think Xavier can elaborate because he actually physically works on the railroad.
So, maintenance of way is the department that takes care of, maintaining the way, as it were. So the maintenance of way train, also known as a work train, is the train that works with the maintenance of way department in terms of dumping ballast or unloading ties or loading new ties or rails or anything that the maintenance of way department needs. It's not a revenue freight service. It's just an internal, work train that just works with the department.
And how often does that run?
Logan?
It doesn't get around very often. Like, when a train derails, the maintenance of way train will have to go to Bryson, pick up either a replacement car or a replacement locomotive, then go out to the derail. Then they have to re-rail it, switch out engines for the current crew, and then go back to Bryson. So it's not very often that it gets ran.
What would you say would be the worst derailment in the history of the West Virginia Southern?
Worst derailment? I don't know if we've had a really bad derailment. Xavier?
There have been incidents in which whoever is running it would DC, and then chaos ensues.
But normally it's just one or two cars. Any derail is a serious derail, but like major derails, I mean, it's not very often. Even Shane can contest to that. I mean, it's not very often that stuff derails.
Yeah, no, not really. I mean, unless you're not paying attention, which you need to be paying attention all the time anyway.
Of course, because otherwise, I mean...
Oops.
So, in everyone's mind, what would you say is the worst industry to switch out?
Worst, as in most work, the Silva Industries, the paperboard, and the Parsons Tannery when those are both tier 5 and they get a lot of cars, that can be kind of a nightmare.
I know.
Just a little bit, you know.
I think the most, like, the current headache one right now would have to be the sawmill. I think that's the headache one right now. Like, I think everyone dreads that
Could you
one.
explain why do you think the sawmill is the most headache one?
Well, it's got there's no real. You can only take 7 cars in there at a time because of the headroom track. I mean, it's not. You can't really get to the bottom of the track where the cars are physically serviced at and filled up. You can only take 7 in and out at a time. So, and if you're getting 20 cars serviced every day, you're going down there multiple times from the yard just to get that industry serviced.
So I noticed we have a signal with a little bit of a junction. Could you care to explain what this place is?
So yeah, this is the Alarco Junction. I'm right now it's currently our end of the line for all of our trains. Like nothing goes past this point, but in the near future, this is going to be the junction point for Alarca, and this is where Alarca will get its interchange service from our fast rates. So we're treating Alarca as its own subdivision.
So you're basically saying that Lorca is going to be cut off from all mainline service.
I wouldn't really say cut off. I would say it's separated in the operations. Like it still gets its cars every day, but it's ran differently because there's only one industry at the bottom of the hill, and there's only real one local that operates this area.
And I see that we're passing a train in the Alarca Junction. Oh wait, no. Is it there on my screen? I can't tell.
No, there's nothing in here.
Ah. So I noticed that there was like 3 separate tracks in the Alarca Junction area. Care to explain what that is?
So yeah, there's multiple tracks in Alarca due to the fact of there's a small yard. There's a 2-track yard here, and that's for the interchange for X interchange. Let me rephrase that. X fast freight service to where it can get its cars, and then if there's a meet here, it can take the secondary leg of the Y and be a standard meet.
Mm-hmm. So I noticed that we slowed down to a stop. Care to explain what we're doing and why we're going in reverse?
So there's no room down in Alarca for this behemoth of a passenger train to be serviced or to be switched around. So we're backing it down into Alarca as to where when it comes up, it can be facing the right direction to be heading down the main line.
How often would you say that you guys run into a power issue?
Xavier, you want to answer that? Xavier or Shane?
Yeah, you go ahead.
As of right now, they really don't have any any issues with power, because if something does derail or it goes down or something there for a repair or anything, we have a backup for now for mostly everything. But that being said, when we do expand, it's gonna make it more rough on everything because we're actually gonna have to buy more. So when actually we do expand the track, we might have a little bit of an issue with power, but it won't be long because we'll just end up having to buy another set of locomotives or something. But it'll take time to build up to be able to purchase them when we do open the new line.
Railroader Gaming asks, how many cars does the passenger train pull behind it? I'm thinking you already answered this question, though, Logan.
Yeah, 7. It pulls 7 cars.
All right. Are we looking to expand it in the future any time soon?
We're taking that train specifically one day at a time. I mean, if it constantly gets filled up and we're not picking up all the passengers and we stop becoming efficient in what we do, yes, we're going to have to buy more.
Right. So, what's the steepest grade of the West Virginia Southern as of right now?
What would you ask at 3%?
On the main, not entirely sure what's steeper, if it's this hill that's just east of Bryson or if it's the Cowie grade going east. Probably the latter. In general, the track's going up to either one of the Alarka copper mines.
Right. So, if the Alarka branch is supposed to be like its own railroad, so why do we go down? Doesn't it have like its own engine to run it, or?
Shane, I think you can answer that question more than I can because we talked about it last night. And I think I've been doing most of the talking, so I'm just going to let you talk for a little bit.
Go ahead and answer that one. I got a little bit of an issue at the moment. I made
All right.
That's a sentence that you probably don't ever want to hear.
No, it's not. And I usually don't do that, so, uh-oh.
So, we're treating it as it's subdivision. So, and I think Xavier can contest this. Each railroad has its own subdivisions. So, with it being its own subdivision, it's still a part of our railroad in the grand scheme of things, but it's separated in all of its operations and stuff like that.
Xavier, could you please explain what a subdivision is?
Subdivision is a specific section of a railroad. A railroad, if it's big enough, should be divided into 2 divisions. The Reading Northern has 2 divisions, Reading Division, Lehigh Division. It's set up that way to kind of, not exactly compartmentalize, but to organize it a little bit. And we have, I'll try not to talk about the RNN too much, who gives a crap about that, but subdivisions in game on our railroad are, like I said, to organize and to keep things moving in a most efficient manner, such as the fast freight goes in, just cuts off cars at Alarka Junction, and then the Alarka local just handles it. It's just a set-off system that's set up to be the most efficient as we can be.
One thing I've noticed throughout our journey is that we hug the river. Could you care to explain why we hug the water so much?
I think Xavier can answer that question.
Yeah. Well, railroads typically stay next to rivers as the grade is not... It's kind of like a pre-made grade for the railroads. Sometimes in real life, railroads have actually moved rivers over to make room for their tracks. The Reading Railroad did that back when that was a thing, some 50, 60 years ago. And just makes it easier to build track, whereas normally, or not normally, but it would cost more money to be drilling holes through the mountains for tunnels. So it's the cheapest way that railroads would build themselves back in the day.
Right. And you mentioned something about tunnels. Like, how many tunnels do we own on the West Virginia Southern?
As of right now, 2, I believe. There's a tunnel at Cowie, just west of milepost 49, and there's a tunnel on the Alarka branch, which you are going through right now.
All right. Do you want to give like a little bit more history of this? Like, how many days have we been operating for? I think you already answered that, but I can't remember. Like,
In real
in-game.
lifetime, we've been operating for about 8 months. In game days, we've done about.
52 or
Well,
53, I think.
we're on day 53 right now, as we speak.
What would you say is the least busiest part of your railroad?
I think Xavier can answer that one.
I'm going to say, freight-wise, I don't want to say locations. I would say Ella, but reporting locations-wise, I would say maybe Bryson. They don't receive much freight. The local doesn't receive much freight to shift. There are logs and such as well, but for cars for customers, whether to be loaded or unloaded, I think Bryson. What do you guys think?
Wilmot only gets like 2 or 3.
Oh, I thought we were talking about reporting locations. Yeah, sure, Wilmot.
Well, reporting locations, yes, Bryson. Physical freight locations that have industries in it, it would be Wilmot.
Yeah, yeah.
How many freight industries does the West Virginia Southern service?
Oh Lord,
Too many to count.
I'm counting right now.
As you guys can tell, we are not prepared for these kinds of questions.
What is probably your most favorite, like, the most proudest achievement you made on the West Virginia Southern?
I think Shane can answer that one, but
Going back to the previous question, just real quick, 20. That's not including house tracks.
Shane, what would you say is the most proudest achievement of the West Virginia Southern?
I would say just how far we've came. I mean, in real life, yeah, it's been like the 8 or 9 months, but for what we say, 55 days, 56 days in game,
53.
53. For only being 53 days and how far we've gotten, it requires a lot of work for everybody, and it requires everybody to work together. And just being able to see the group of people that we have working together, all for the same goal of making the railroad actually profitable and running how it should. That's the best feeling for me, is just seeing everybody working together, enjoying themselves. Pretty much that. I mean, yeah.
So I see that we're entering a train yard right now that looks pretty big. Could you care to explain what this yard is?
Yeah, this is a Larka, and I mean it's a decently sized yard. This is where we keep our MOW at, and we have another passenger train because sitting down here because passenger service at night doesn't really get ran. I mean, it's not really very profitable at nighttime for us to run both passenger trains at night, so we just run one. I mean, it normally for a trip on passengers we can do $2,000 each trip right now, and it's profitable during the daytime, but nighttime it's not very profitable. But it's a decent sized yard for just the amount of services that are industries that pull through here.
Mm-hmm. What would you say is probably the most turn and burn moment when you had to deal with passengers?
I think Xavier can answer that one.
I personally am not really involved in passenger all that too much. Logan, you better answer this one.
I, the most obvious turn and burn location is right now. I mean, we're at the end of the line in Alarka, and this train's got to head back to Silva for the morning service. We already have one train down here that heads eastbound in the morning, but we got to take this one back to Silva. So I mean, it's just you gotta basically turn and burn.
Can we get out and explore the Alarka Yard, please?
Yeah, go right ahead. Right now just right now we're just the AI is moving the train around so it can get serviced.
So what's that red thing that's on the track in front of us?
Uh, Mass, you're a part of this operation too. I mean, you work
Well,
just as hard as the rest of us.
well, I'm basically the cameraman, but explaining what this is called a fusee. It marks to tell a train crew when and where to stop. Like say for the AI to stop, because the AI, they won't stop until they hit the end of the line. But as you can tell, when they stop at the fusee, they know where to stop there. And the fusee helps control the train, especially when someone's running the maintenance of way train. Because when MOW is running, they only go like 5-10 miles an hour when they're doing their work. And to give everyone a close up, this is what our maintenance of way train looks like. And here is the 4301. And we are going to go into the cab and check it out. So this is what the interior looks like. As you can tell, there's the gauges, the speedometer, the pressure gauges, and obviously this rope is the whistle.
The whistle.
So, Logan, care to explain what these three passenger cars are sitting right here in the yard by themselves? And
So yeah, we're prepping right now for when we open up the new line. I mean, we've obviously been working on the new line for a couple weeks now. I mean, when we switch over, we're just preparing ourselves when we do switch over to be able to continue operations normally. So these three passenger cars, they're not going to be holding as much because they're not servicing the full line. So there's just three small passenger cars. And with that, it's for when the Alarco local arrives, and when we do finally open up the line, we can still just run efficiently. So we're just prepping for when we do open it, we won't have any issues.
you mentioned something earlier about CTC. So what exactly is CTC?
That's a question for Xavier because he's our chief dispatcher and he knows everything about the dispatch system.
CTC stands for Centralized Traffic Control. Centralized meaning all from the dispatcher's board, which is at the headquarters building in Bryson. The dispatcher can control the interlockings. The dispatcher can't control all of the signals, meaning there are intermediate signals in between interlockings. known as an ABS, which is an automatic block signal, and that simply, well, that automatically displays whatever signal should be displayed prior to whatever is before the next interlocking. For instance, if the dispatcher lines a train in that's going east into Bryson West there for main 2, you'll get an approach signal at the ABS that's just west of milepost 65. So CTC is a automatic and manual system both at the same time for the dispatcher to direct traffic.
What is probably the longest siding that the West Virginia Southern currently has?
Xavier.
I would say I'm not entirely sure. Barker's is a pretty long one.
Hold on, let me pull up a track map. It would
Length?
actually, lengthwise, it's Thomas Valley. It
Oh, okay.
holds 50 cars.
For me personally, I would probably have to go with Thomas Valley or the Whittier area. Like where Whittier Station is.
No.
Pretty lengthy one. I have 2,400 feet of train, and there's still more room for about 3 more cars between the signals. So it's about 60 cars.
Oh yeah,
from signal to signal.
it is Whittier. It's 58 cars in Whittier.
So the West Virginia Southern main line's all single track with passing sidings, correct?
Xavier, I'm just gonna let you answer all the CTC and mainline questions.
I'm sorry, I was locked in. Can you repeat the question, please?
So the West Virginia Southern's entire single track railroad was just passing sidings. There's no double track main line whatsoever.
Yes, that's correct. And it's signaled the entire way from Silva to Nantahala.
So this is going to be a question for the future. You mentioned something about a very steep grade. How steep are we talking about?
Shane?
The new grade that we're going to be getting, I think the max is what, 4.8%, I believe.
Yeah, so someone asks, what is the next milestone for us? Like, what's our next big achievement that we hope to be getting?
It would have to be the new track. I mean, it's something that me and Shane and everyone's been working towards for 8 months. I mean, it's the biggest thing that we've all been working for. I think Shane would say the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean,
Could you explain the training program that the West Virginia Southern has?
Training program, I mean, like I said, it's not intense. I mean, what we do with the training is we just make sure you're able to run the train. I mean, yes, there's some training with how to learn air brakes and speed restrictions and how to learn the signals and stuff like that. But basically all the training we have is just learning how to run the train, and just it's basically just a road test.
And like, what different levels of training do you have? Like, I noticed when I signed up, you guys had like a different thing, like logging, training 1, training 2, switch specialist, passenger. Like, could you explain that a little bit?
So with the roles, I mean, It's just for us to help keep track of everyone and what their levels are. Passenger and switch specialist and freight are just roles that we give people to let us know what they're good at doing. Um, like train engineer stuff, that those are certificates. And when you start out with train level 1, and that's basically your training level. Train level 2 is local work. I mean, it's just certificates, and then train level 3 is you're able to run the main line, and then train level 4 is ultimately the hardest one and the longest one to get. It takes the longest because that is running the fast freight. I mean, when we're talking fast freight, we're talking 40 or not 45, but anywhere from 2,500 to 3,600 ton of freight and over 2,500 feet of train. Anywhere from 2,500 to 3,500 feet of train. I mean, it's the longest and hardest to deal with, and we have its own certificate for that reason.
Mhm. Chat, don't forget this is a interview question type thing. So if you have any questions to ask me, Logan, or any of the board of directors, do not hesitate to ask. Someone asks, how hard is it to brake with the fast freight train with all its lanes?
I think Xavier can answer that question because he's running it right now.
Going downhill, like I said before, it's not hard. You just have to assess with how many cars you have and what your tonnage is, how many pounds you should take out of the brake pipe given your respective grade that you're about to traverse down or that you're already on.
I got disconnected. The live stream, my internet hiccuped. Are you kidding me? Hold on.
What?
Come on, game. There it goes. It's back. Sorry about that, everyone. Internet hiccup. You gotta love it.
Shall I continue?
Give me one moment. Make sure the stream's still running. Yeah, it's still running. Okay, yeah, continue.
Okay. Wait, I had kind of a good point, but not really.
You were talking about braking.
Yeah. As long as you have a decent set on the brakes early, it's much better to take too much air than not enough, and you end up slamming into somebody. But with a little bit of practice, it turns into a piece of cake.
Have you ever had a problem bringing the fast freight train to a stop before?
No, I wouldn't say so. There are a couple of times I just wasn't really paying attention, sometimes in my own save, and didn't stop where I wanted to. It never led to any consequences. However, no, I would not say I've had issues with stopping the fast freight.
Logan, you probably know what I'm talking about by this, but have you ever had a really scary moment that made you almost have a panic attack? You should know what I'm hinting about.
I mean, multiple times. I mean, there's been multiple points along the railroad where people have just left the switch open, and you be doing 35 through it, and switch got left open, and you're going up a leg of a Y, and you gotta stop.
Could you use like an example of like how from your point of view from running the railroad?
So I mean, it was just a normal day when we had CTC from Bryson to Whittier, but we hadn't had it past Bryson, or not Bryson, but Whittier. And I was pulling through Whittier, and switch got left open. I mean, on the call only Y, and well, I needless to say, I didn't see the switch until 4 or 5 cars before the switch, and I was doing 35 with 2,000 ton. At the time, that was very heavy for us. Well, when I seen the switch was left open, I dumped every bit of air in that train. I mean, every single ounce of it. Then I threw the reverser back and had the train fully in reverse as well, trying to stop that train as fastly as possible. I mean, and I didn't put a single car on the ground, but it was a point where it was a little sketchy because I was doing 35 on a switch and a leg that is only meant to do 15 to 20.
Xavier, have you had anything like that on the West Virginia Southern or on your own save? You still in the Discord?
Yeah, you should be.
Oh, sorry, my physical mic was muted. No, I don't think so. Because I always, in my own save, I always just remembered what position. Because that's, with no other people in the save, there's absolutely no confusion whatsoever, you know what I mean? If there's no communication, that doesn't matter because there are no people, so... No, I have not had an incident like that.
I will say, for a question that was asked in the live stream chat, I actually did have an incident of my own where I actually did put 2 cars on the ground. I wasn't paying attention, and I thought I clicked to throw a switch, which happens a lot with the server, is where we go to think we threw a switch, but we actually didn't. And I turned to look, because I'm thinking my engine's going one way. I turn around, and I see just in time for the 1945, which was the Bryson local at the time, smash into 2 boxcars and completely derail them. And let's just say Logan had the soundboard for that one.
Yeah, I do.
But I would say, other than that, I probably wouldn't have much of a scary more incident than that. There were a few times where I didn't feel confident enough to drive the fast freight train, especially by myself, because we used to be ran a 24/7 server, and that's what kind of put us in the ground and put us in the black, or in the red, I mean. Logan could probably explain that a little bit better than I can.
I mean, you explained it the best you can. I mean, when we were running 24/7, it was kind of like a burnout situation where we just all got burnt out. I mean, server kind of died, and we just revisited things, and we just run things a little bit differently, and everything's constantly updating.
So when is probably like your most time to be turn burn 100% full on serious?
I think Xavier can answer that question.
I would say when the inbound comes in, because I like to see that type of work be done as quickly and efficiently as possible. When everybody gets serious, probably that's probably the same. I try to. Well, I don't try to, but I'm always kind of, I don't know, maybe a little too militaristic around the clock. But when things get most serious, I would say that's when the inbound comes in. Everybody starts working. Freight gets busier.
And I think serious on with like the radios too is like when we just get a full server and everyone's just talking over each other. We gotta separate and we gotta just switch radios out and just keep working.
So can you explain like how you have your radio thing set up?
So yeah, we mainline. We've got multiple different radios. We've got our mainline radio. Our mainline radio is for anybody on the main line. it's where the dispatcher hangs out and where everyone on the main. If you're on the main, you have to be on that radio. I mean, it's a standard rule. I mean, it's a rule for us. I mean, with that radio, that if something happens out on the main, you got to get a hold of dispatch as quickly as possible. And then we've got multiple yard work channels. I mean, if we got 4 or 5 crews running yards at the same time, we need multiple yard work channels. Then we have one specific channel for our Alarka branch for just its own branch line. It's you've got 1 or 2 trains down there moving and working. You gotta just work it.
All right. What else? What else? What is probably the most profitable of all the trains that you run?
I think Shane can answer that question too. I mean, and I'll agree with him.
As of right now, we've come to find out that since we do our passengers 24/7, they're the bread and butter that we pretty much have now. Because we've we've went through the numbers and everything to try to figure stuff out, and it's by far our passenger service outdoes our freight service easily.
How much of a money difference is it between the passenger and the freight train? Because you would think the freight train would be worth a lot more than the passenger.
There's at least a 5 to 10 grand difference between the passenger and the freight, because on a freight, yeah, you get paid for when you deliver and when you take the car back to the interchange. But for the passengers, you're getting fares each time you stop at a station. And most of the time, our passenger trains are completely full when they're running. So it's overall, it just adds up when the passenger trains are running.
Mm-hmm. What would you say is the most profitable industry that you guys own?
That one, I'm not sure of. If I would have to guess, I would say probably the sawmill. But other
Right
than
now,
that, yeah, right now that's what I would guess. But I'm not actually sure.
we right now it is the sawmill because it's getting 20 or 30 cars every day. I mean, it's pulling cars in. I mean, constantly,
On
and
top of on top of that, logs are about $5,000 a day as well.
yeah, agreed. So it pulls in a decent amount of money every day.
So you get paid for delivering cars, but also delivering logs to them as well.
Correct. As not upon delivery, you don't get paid for the logs. That comes in at the end of the day. I'm not entirely sure what the price is per log, but it all totals up with how many you bring. It depends. What you're paid obviously does depend on how many logs you bring in. So the higher the tier of the sawmill, the more logs it takes, more money you get.
And I see that we're approaching midnight, and I assume they pay the West Virginia Southern every time at midnight.
That's correct. Pulpboard and logs does come in at midnight, as well as any finishing reports. I'm pretty sure that comes in at 1800.
Well,
But yes.
the report's going in at 1800. Our daily report comes in at 1800 every day. All of our maintenance costs, all of our costs for AI running, and then just maintenance trains, and then we get paid for our pulpwood and paperboard every
So,
day at midnight.
so can you basically explain like what the daily report is for everyone?
Daily report is basically what we get reported every day. I mean, what it shows on it is basically our overall reputation, network services, and reputation effects. Then we get our um, operations and stuff like that. Like yesterday, we did $2,400 different passenger freighters. Then we also did 180 freight deliveries. Then it also tells us our outstanding bills at that time the report is generated. And as you can tell, there's cars everywhere. And if you go down to the finance, it'll tell us what our finances are like for the day and what we pulled in that day for each of the different things and what our what costs and stuff like that we had and what our profits were. And then we got our fuel inventory. Basically tells me if we need fuel in a certain location and if it's full or not, or do we need to order extra cars. Then with our shops, with our wear and tear, it will just tell us if it needs repair parts or not.
Mm-hmm. And how often do you go through repair parts?
I mean, the smaller yards, I think me and Shane decided it doesn't go through that much. I mean, Bryson goes through 3 cars every time we turn around. I mean, Bryson's our main yard, and we're constantly ordering parts for Bryson. Wouldn't you say, Shane?
Yeah, and then especially with how we're going to be switching stuff up, that's the other places are just going to be like small little like emergency stops, and Bryson's going to be the main spot.
So Bryce is basically going to be nothing but a huge storage yard for equipment.
No. So, Dillsboro is going to be our storage yard for extra equipment. With us running daily trains back and forth, we always can just throw on equipment right at the last minute from Dills. I mean, not everything is a unit train or a specific type of train. We're always switching stuff up, and if we do need an emergency car or something like that, it'll just throw on the next train through, next freight train through, and it'll get to Bryson. Then Bryson's where all of our maintenance stuff happens, and then just storage is Dillsboro.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that's really stored in Bryson is the third passenger cut and train for when the passenger trains come in for service.
How often does the passenger trains get cut, repaired, and serviced?
What would you say, Shane? Every 2 or 3 days?
Yeah, usually. With them running 24/7, we need to keep them in tip-top shape, and plus the higher in percentage that they are repaired, that affects our passenger income. So if they're not at 100% every couple of days, it will affect how much money we get from our passengers.
And I saw something earlier, something about an overhaul. Could you explain what that is?
Yeah, overhaul. It's a big process. I mean, we've had passenger trains that go through overhauls that have gone through overhaul already, and it takes about 2 or 3 days for an overhaul to be complete. I mean, it's going through every little bit, making sure every little bit of that train is safe to operate. I mean, it's one of the biggest things to deal with, and it's the hardest thing to deal with just because of the fact of that it has to be down for 2 days and nothing else can get repaired during those 2 days.
What would you say the longest you've gone without running a passenger train before?
Never.
Alright, so say hypothetically the passenger train we get has an error or an issue, like say it comes off the tracks or something like that, what would happen then? Like say a passenger train derailed on mid-journey.
What happens if it derails mid-journey? I mean,
Yes.
um, I mean, it's a big issue. I mean, it's not good when it happens.
Hold on. So I see that in the chat someone derailed one car. Could we take a look at what that happened?
I would
No.
prefer us not to.
Alright. How often does something like that happen?
It's not
think
very
it's probably-
often.
It's just like with any other railroad. Sometimes stuff happens.
And this was not operator error. This was router error because I disconnected, and then yeah.
Logan, you already answered this question, but TNRR said that you missed it. How long is the line? Like how?
It's 41 miles.
And
From
how long does
her-
it take to get from the beginning to the end?
I want to say about 2 hours.
Well, I don't have any more questions for everyone. Does anyone in the live stream chat have any more questions? Give them a little bit because it's like I said, there's about like a 10-second delay. Alright, well, since everyone doesn't have any more questions, I am going to be ending the live stream. I want to thank everyone for
Well-
joining. Go ahead, Logan.
We're not finished. I mean, I
Oh.
think me and Shane have a few things that we would like to announce.
Go ahead.
Um,
By all means, go announce some.
Me and Shane were talking about this last night. I mean, with us getting more line and stuff like that, we're going to be needing more members. I mean, more and more. We're always needing members. But on top of that, we're getting 12 new miles of track here within the next 2 or 3 months, or not 2 or 3 months, within the next, I want to say 4 or 5 weeks. And then we're getting multiple new locals. More and more stuff will be added. I know here in a few hours tonight, where I'm going to be buying a new S51 switcher for Alarka, and brand new. Then we're going to be buying new coal cars, new pulpwood cars, and then more GP9s for more fast rigs. We're getting a Santa Fe. on top of that for a helper unit, and then it just we keep moving. I mean, we're always that's the upcoming stuff within the next 2 or 3 weeks, but we're always looking for members, and
All right.
it's nice if everyone is there to help.
Okay. TNRR asks, how can I join?
Well, yeah. So the way everything works right now is the Discord channel. I mean, the Discord server. I mean, it's where everything's posted. Me, myself, and the board of directors, we're constantly posting something in there every single day, and it's constantly being updated. I mean, today I maybe spent 2 or 3 hours just updating on the server. Shang's currently working on an engine roster. Then we're working on new training stuff. I mean,
And for people that want to buy the game, it's currently on Steam in early access, like we said multiple times, for $29.99. But anyways, continue.
but if you just don't if you don't have the money for the game right now, but you want to join the Discord server, go ahead and join it. I mean, so you can get a feel for our operations. You won't be able to see the main radios that we use every day right away until you get some training in, but it will just be like that. I mean, then we're always looking for new staff. I mean, right now, staff wise, I'm looking for train master for Bryson Da Silva, and then I'm also looking for a yard master for Andrews.
So what's the difference between a yard master and a train master?
Yard master and train master I think Shane can elaborate more on this.
A yard master, he essentially deals with what's in the yard. Like, he deals with everything from the switching to movements in a yard. The train master, he, on a section of track, how we're doing it, we're going to have 2 to 3 train masters right now. They deal with the maintenance of the equipment that's on their section. So say they have a local locomotive that's there on their area. They pay attention to it, and if it needs overhauled, they'll work with our maintenance away department and our repair facility to get that locomotive into the repair, and also have a replacement for it until it is done being repaired. So essentially, a train master, he pretty much does he runs that part of the railroad like it's its own railroad, but he still reports to higher ups.
Mm-hmm. And do you have one dispatcher or multiple dispatchers?
Xavier?
At a time, just one. There are multiple people that know how to dispatch, but at one time, there's only one person in that seat dispatching.
Mm-hmm.
It's not enough railroad to split it up into multiple sections.
Mm-hmm. Do any of you have any future announcements or anything that you want to add?
I think that's the only real true announcement. Wouldn't you say, Shane?
Yeah, pretty much for right now, that we're pretty much expanding the line over the toughest part of the line. That's what we're going to be opening up. And the announcing of more locomotives, more actual trains that we're going to be running. But other than that, that's pretty much it.
Well, you heard it here, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining this live stream, and I'll see you all in the next one. Have a good night, and I'll talk to you all in the next one.